Give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. We'll grind them into supplies to feed the working classes. All my life, my parents have told me not to open the basement door, but I got curious and disobeyed them. What is that glowing ball in the sky, and why does it hurt my eyes? My son's cough grew worse as the virus spread to his lungs. At least he's not autistic, I thought as I prepared the lavender essential oil. When the kidnapper made me guess where he kept my daughter, I went for the basement, and he said, "Correct," allowing me to see her. But when I found her severed head in there, I learned that every other choice would have been correct as well. I've been working on stories to compete with the best on this sub, but I'm finding it near impossible. I'm beginning to think some of you are just making yours up. Now be careful. That line of rock salt's the only thing keeping them out, the man said, welcoming my group into his refuge. Sea salt, I clarified. Sea salt keeps us out. My husband has been very upset with me since my failed suicide attempt. He's crying nonstop and he won't acknowledge me. I framed the first letter I got as a police officer, from a woman thanking me after I had supported her through her daughter's suicide. I passed it in my hallway every day for nearly 8 years, before realizing the handwriting was the same as on the girl's suicide note. As I slit her throat, I looked in her unblinking eyes and realized too late that she wanted to live. I knew it to be true because mirrors don't lie. So it turns out that you can feel everything that happens to your body after death. I suppose I should be flattered my husband still finds me attractive after all these years. Please take me instead, I screamed, grabbing at the 2 men who took my child. Sorry ma'am, children only, they said as they continued loading up the last lifeboat on the ship. The principal of my son's school called me at work today to tell me my son pushed another kid while on a school excursion. I initially thought that this hardly warranted a phone call, until I remembered that my son's excursion was to the Grand Canyon. When the tsunamis hit, most people were evacuated. Feeling the trickle of water rise to my chin, I let go of the prison bars in bitter resentment. For my last wish, I wish my dad to be alive again. I stood atop his grave and smiled, imagining him screaming and clawing at his coffin lid as he did the 2 previous times I wished him back. There's a serial rapist in my town who claims over 100 victims every year. The fact no one believes them makes me even more scared of her. Ah, so it's 2020, the time traveler said, very early in from the looks of it, he muttered under his breath. It's been almost a decade since I last saw my mother, and she still reminds me every day that if I misbehave again, she'll take my hearing too. Battery at 1%. I looked at Earth one last time before my suit ran out of power. They say you die once when you stop breathing, and a second time when someone says your name for the last time. Sitting alone in my dilapidated apartment for years now, I realize it's not always in that order. Yesterday I visited my boyfriend, who was serving a life sentence in prison. As I watched that asshole shaking and pissing himself with fear, I knew he finally regretted beating me to death. My grandmother died giving birth to my mother, who died giving birth to me. As I feel my consciousness slip away, I pray that my baby is a boy. They say we have a primal sense that we can just feel when someone is watching us. It's been a few weeks and it's clear that you do not have that sense. I laid paralyzed, patiently waiting for the curse to be lifted by a true love's kiss. When the prince came, he tore away my dress with lust and I realized I was never meant to be saved. Here I am, trying my best to swim while slowly bleeding to death as I see the boat sailing away. What do they even need my fins for? I frantically ran to Walmart's customer service to pick up my son, who got lost in the store. Nice try, sir. His father already picked him up. Daddy made me sit in the chair while he tied a string from my tooth to the doorknob. Before he slammed the door, he said, "Tell me where Mommy went and we can stop doing this." After her best friend Julia committed suicide, my daughter Sarah started a charity in her honor to combat cyberbullying. While it took a lot of work to finally push Julia over the edge, my husband and I are just so happy that Sarah can add this activity to her college applications. I promised my wife that when I returned from the war, we'd sit down and rewatch the movie from our first date. But now she's dying in the hospital, all because she wanted to make popcorn. After giving birth, I asked when the young redhead nurse will be back with my baby. There's apparently no nurses working here by that description. I didn't understand his sexual attraction to me. I tried to tell his wife, but it's not like she can understand my barking. The sound of my son calling for help grew fainter and fainter. As the batteries in my hearing aids died, I realized it would soon be impossible for me to find him in time. After I killed myself to escape my tormentor, I lost all my memories as I was reincarnated into a new body. The mother held her newborn child in her arms and said, "Did you think you could get away that easily?" I love going to the beach and watching the difference between the low and high tides, although this tide has been very low for quite some time. My dad had told me that his flashlight could kill any monster. When I told him about what Uncle Jack had been doing to my sister, he made sure to demonstrate. "It seems you have discovered an entirely new type of termite." I felt the terror rise in my chest as the doctor turned around with the x-rays. "This also explains the aching you've been feeling in your bones." I decided to kill off a few characters in the book I'm writing. It would definitely spice up my autobiography a little. In his last days, my grandpa would weep and rave about the fires of hell, and I wondered how such a good man could fear such a thing. After the funeral, I found the photographs and learned for the first time that his days in Buchenwald had not been spent as a prisoner. Trapped and starving in a World War I trench, I gave my last ration to my best friend and partner. Adolf seemed so passionate about having a future in politics, it would be wrong to let him die. As I felt a knife run down my skin, I felt oddly happy. Well, it wasn't my skin yet. "It's okay, darling. The new babysitter is here to put you to bed," my mother said as she hugged me and smiled at the young woman behind her. I'm surprised she couldn't feel me shaking as I looked upon the face that I'd been seeing outside my window for weeks. I've been chained here for a week, suffering under the scorching sun with no food or water, and I'm beginning to fear the worst. Maybe I'm not such a good boy after all. "The tests are negative. You are not pregnant," the doctor said. "I have no idea what the thing in your body is." Through the orphanage, it crept silently in the darkness, killing the children in their sleep as they dreamed of better lives with new parents. It was later learned that the stealthy and dreaded murderer could have been stopped by simply replacing the 9-volt battery in the carbon monoxide detector. "Good girl," I murmured to my beloved dog as the first tears slid down my face. I didn't think her little teeth would hurt this bad, but it's been 2 days since I fell, and there's no need for us both to starve. The last thing the boy ever did was cry out for his mommy. Never me, always his fucking mommy. That's all the vindication I needed. I kept reminding the little boy that he was going to meet SpongeBob. He eventually stopped crying and even helped me tie the bricks to his feet. Unable to move, I could only look at my killer. In a fit of childish curiosity, my 2-year-old pulled the plug. I've always wanted to be a writer, but my family always berated me and told me not to quit my day job. As I stand here with tears in my eyes, a trash bin full of disappointment, and a noose around my neck, I hope this last letter they get from me is finally good enough for them. I could only watch and scream as the murderers held my little boy down and forced the slow-acting poison into his bloodstream. Unable to take it anymore, I rip out the syringe and furiously look through my bag for its essential oils. My last girlfriend always got creeped out by the 14 weird dolls I kept on display. I have a new girlfriend now, and she wants me to throw out all the 15 of the disturbingly lifelike dolls. I started tearing up as I walked down the aisle to marry my future husband. I just wish there was another way to regain my family's honor than marrying my attacker.